Good morning. It is 11:11 a.m. on January 25th, 2026, on a not just a cold day here in Georgia, but I think it's cold everywhere in the USA today. And I'm sure everybody got the message that, hey, Candace, you're the first one on here, I see. I assume you all got the message that we weren't going to try to go downtown to the Atlanta Theater today, and we're doing a Mobile Metron. So I hope you're warm and inside, and got lots of things to share with you. Let's see who else is on here today. I can't say good morning. I didn't mean to offend you. You can't believe all that we've done the last few hours. We were working till the wee hours of the morning on the house. And just a few minutes ago, when I was setting up, he said, I'm just going to paint here in the foyer. Hey, Danny, while you're, so I can listen to you. And I said, hey, Lisa, I said, please don't. It's distracting. And hey, Sonia, because the foyer is right. I'm in front of the fireplace, obviously. So the foyer is right there. And I said, no, don't. It's going to distract me. And so he went upstairs. And I felt bad. I thought he's just trying to help out. So, kid, if you want to come down and paint, hey, Avery, if you want to come down and paint, it's fine. Hey, Leslie, we've been doing so much in this house it's transformed. We're keeping a lot of the stuff that my mom had here was awesome. Hey, Linda, I'm sure it is snowy up there. Hey, Patty. But there's a lot of things, things with swans and cherubs and tassels and lace and, we're, hey, Melissa. Yeah, I love this fireplace. We've really enjoyed it, the last couple of days. So it's been kind of cool. It reminds me of, when Jesus said the kingdom of God is like a man who brings treasure out of his house, both old things and new. And so we're repurposing a lot of things, and I've bought a bunch of stuff. Okay, kid. Well, you're welcome to come down. Hey, Howie. We bought a lot of stuff. Fortunately, somebody on here PayPal'd me a nice gift yesterday. So I did some shopping, bought some stuff that we needed for the house. And it's been really enjoyable. My parents bought this place in 2013, and Ken and I had been together about a year then. And so in the early days, every time we would come over here, my dad would meet Ken with a punch list of things that needed to be done. Hey, Romanita. And so he's got a lot of sweat equity in this house. He feels really as much connection to it as I do, because I didn't grow up in this house. But I don't want to get ahead of myself, because what I'm going to say about that factors into my teaching. But anyway, and I have to say we make a good team, and he comes up with. I'm a manifester. I can manifest stuff, but I have to say, and he's watching upstairs. He comes up with some amazing ideas, like even last night. There's a dining room table it was my mom's taste. It's like on a big black swan. Hey, Leslie. Oh, really? Interesting. And it's not our taste. So I'm removing a lot of stuff. I don't know if I'm going to do a yard sale. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to wait till after my mom goes before I even deal with any of that. But right now we've got a huge enclosed sunroom back here. So there's a lot of stuff in there. Anyway, I said, I want this table out, and I want this chandelier down. It's $2,000 for this. Hey, Brenda, it's $2,000 for in here. It's not, and it's this isn't my taste. And I said, hey, Carl, I'll go online. I'll just buy a new dining room table and chairs. And he said, what about that one in the basement? And I said, I knew my kids had put stuff down there, but I didn't even know whose table it was. I knew it had to be either Jared's or Jonah's. So I texted them. I said 2 things. 1, whose table is this in the basement? And 2, are you using it? So Jared texted back saying it was mine. I can't use it anymore. It's too big for my house. I said, can we use it? He said, yeah, fine. And it was perfect. It was just little things like that I wouldn't have thought of. There's a HGTV show that used to be on called Decorating on a Dime, where they would, hey, Jackie, somebody would come in and show you what you already had that you could repurpose and put in different places. And we went over to the loft yesterday because I'm obviously going to sell that in a couple of months and just move entirely in here. And so we brought some stuff here, and so it's definitely, we've been here a year now. I think next week is exactly a year. And so it's feeling like home. Hey, Michael. Hey, Ken, the boys are watching, so that's good. Or Dale, I should call you Dale. Michael Dale. Dale Michael. All right, so I don't have anything to announce, so let me just get into it. And thanks for logging on today. I think a lot of you probably already watched the video I did earlier in the week, catching everybody up on what's been happening with my mom. The last I looked, there was about 4,500 views of it, so I'm assuming a lot of those are you. There might be more than that now. But just for reference, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, my dad passed away 6 years ago. Ken and I were living here at the house here where I am. We were living here taking care of my dad up until the time he passed. I'm looking at the corner where he died. Yes, Leslie, and you know what? We're hanging up the quilt on the stairwell. We're gonna they're painting next week, and we're gonna have it. Which was also one of Ken's ideas. I'm gonna love. It's right over there. We brought it from the loft last night. But anyway, Ken and I were standing right there 6 years ago when hey Dietrich, when my dad passed. So there's a lot of yeah, that was cool, wasn't it, Rhonda? There's a lot of emotion attached to this house, and so we lived here. I don't remember how long after he died that we stayed here, and then finally I went back home. And Mom, to her credit, she lived here for, I'm going to say, a little over a year and a half by herself. Now, her brother Don was technically across the street, and I was over here nearly every day, and she was definitely seen about, and we got great neighbors on both sides here that were always looking in on her. So she was not technically alone, but she was alone in the house. And so she did that for a year and a half, and she did pretty good with it, better than I thought she would have. And then when Jared sold his house in LA and moved back to Atlanta, he didn't know where he was going to live. And so he asked me, so what if I just stayed with Mimi for a while until I decide what I'm going to do, and I can help out with her? And I'm like, yeah, that would be great. We didn't think he was going to be here that long, but somehow, how time moves, and before you know it, he was here 2 years. And then now he's bought another house just a couple streets over from where Jonah and Sophie live, and so he moved out. And so 2 years ago, I put her in a really upscale assisted living not far from here, and she was there for exactly a year until it just became too cost prohibitive. Wait till you hear, Leslie. It's all working together. I mean, stuff has worked together in the last few hours. I'm amazed. I got to come up with a new word for amazed. Anyway, so I knew at a certain point, I thought, if I'm going to keep her here, I've got to sell this house. And then I started doing the math, and I thought I could pay for 5, maybe 6 years for her in that place with the sale of this house. But if she lives longer than that, which is possible, then I'm going to have no place to take her. I'm going to be totally out of money. And so I thought, well, we're gonna just have to move back in the house. And this is one of those never say nevers. And when I officially start my teaching, I'll explain why that's important, what I'm going to talk about. Taking care of my dad was hard. We had some hard days right where I'm sitting. I mean, I can look and think of some of the things that happened that was like, dear God, I don't know how we survived it. And a part of me didn't even want to ever drive back in this neighborhood because, I mean, there's stuff that happened. Like one night he left the house and I was so exhausted with him. I thought, I'm just going to let him walk and see how far he'll go. He'll tire out. Well, he didn't. And he was walking way far and walking into a road with busy traffic on it. And I'm trying to pull him like, Dad, you cannot walk out there. And he didn't know who I was. And he's hit me with his cane. I called Ken. I said, dear God, please come up here and help me. I don't know what to do. Cars are trying to get, I mean, we just had that kind of drama to the point that when he finally left, I mean, he was past ready to go. In fact, I've told this before, but I was sitting right about where I am right now. We had his hospital bed set up here in the room, and this was maybe 72 hours before he transitioned. And we could not get him to go to sleep. I mean, we had given him so much stuff. I thought we can't in good conscience give him anything else. And he was just fighting it. My dad, the strength that he maintained up until the very end was astounding. And so he was just going on. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's just talking gibberish. And I'm just like looking at him like, Dad, please go to sleep, dear God. And in the middle of it, he goes, in his big preacher voice, he goes, somebody tell me how to fly out of here. And I said, just fly. Just go, Dad. It's fine. You're ready. You don't even live here anymore. I've got it. I'm taking care of Mom. I'm taking care of everything. And it was just a moment I've relived lots of times. And, you know, if you think that's disrespectful for me to share something like that, you're definitely not going to like what I'm about to talk about. So if this kind of stuff offends you, tune out now. So anyway, Mom was in assisted living for a year, and then I said, you know, Mom, we're just gonna have to move you back in the house. And like I said, I didn't even want to drive in this neighborhood again, much less move in this house. I just was done with it. It just had too much negative mojo for me. And then, to make matters worse, we were on a meditation weekend, and it was weather like this. It was freezing, and I called Jared. I said, hey, go over to the house and either run the faucets or make sure we've got those little covers on the hoses outside to make sure they don't freeze. I said, I just need to make sure pipes don't burst over there. And he said, why don't I just turn off the water? I said, all right, fine, just do that. So he turned it off, and before I moved Mom back in here, I put a new bathtub in there for her. And thank you, Linda, I appreciate that. So Jared said, he said, when you turn the water back on, just remember I've left the faucets upstairs running. And to me, faucets meant sinks. So I went up there and turned them off, there's 2 bathrooms over there, turned them both off. What he did not tell me is that he'd also turned the shower on. And this house is 50 years old, so it takes a minute for the shower to kick in. So apparently what happened is I turned the water off, I looked around, everything looked fine, and I'm driving out of the driveway. As I'm driving out, the water kicks in, and for a week, there's a really powerful hot water heater here. And so for an entire week, this house was steam bathed. And you cannot believe the damage that can be done in a week. There was mold everywhere. The ceiling above me, it was totally brown. It looked like it was about to fall in. It didn't flood. It just it made everything rust. Like all upstairs was brown streaks down every wall. Every ceiling was brown. It was just horrible. It was horrible. So I not only didn't want to move in here, but I'm like, and now I got to deal with this? Seriously? And I'm not blaming Jared for it. We just had a miscommunication. He assumed I would know faucets. It's just a lesson to always make sure you're clear about what you're saying. Because yes, it was partly his fault, but yes, it was my fault too, because I got out of there too quick. Long story short, it ended up being a blessing, and we had good insurance, and so I've told you that story before. But what changed, hey Lori, what changed the vibe for me is we were driving over here one day, and I had to bring in Mom her dinner, and I said, man, God, I wish I didn't dread driving over here as bad as I do. And I said, but I'm sorry to make you have to move in the house to take care of my mom, but I don't have an alternative. And he said, yeah, totally, Dietrich, miscommunication. Which all things work together for good. It ended up being I'll share that in a minute. And we were driving, and he said, you know what? I think we ought to keep that house. I think there's things we could do to it that would make it more like yours, and you would love it. And man, we'd have a backyard. We could start cooking out. We wouldn't have to go out to eat all the time. And just having a different vision of it, it's like I felt like an elephant got off my chest. And I said, yeah, maybe we could. And so when we moved in here, we moved Mom in here a year ago. And I said, Mom, just so you know, if I'm gonna live here, I'm gonna have to make some changes with some things, because we're on the whole top floor, which the top floor up there is bigger than my loft is. So it actually is more room and an extra bathroom that is a huge blessing. And she didn't care. She was fine with it. I think in the year that she's been here, she only walked up there once to see what we had done, and I don't even think she fully grasped it all. But anyway, so we've lived here for a year, and I'll come back to this in a minute because it has to do with my teaching, because I do have a teaching on this. But we've ended up, part of it's been really hard. Being a full-time caretaker is hard, I'm not going to lie. My mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's 11, 12 years ago. And the doctor, her neurologist has said, he told me a couple years ago, he said, it's plateaued, it's not going to get any worse, but she does have Parkinson's dementia. And, if you've ever dealt with dementia, it's not like flipping a switch. It's not like just one day they're different. It's like gradual. And so the last few months, and especially the last few weeks, it's definitely been an issue. To the point that I thought, okay, something's got to change soon, because this is about to be out of my pay grade. And to her credit, she's done as good as she can do. And she's used to being taken care of, believe me. She married my dad very young, and he's an old school alpha male. And Mom had never even pumped her own gas till after Dad died. So that shows you how, helpless that she is. There's no point in being mad about it. It's just, she's a product of her times. And that's why now when I hear my granddaughter Sophia is flying a plane, I'm like, heck yeah. But part of it, I know, Tony, I know you know. I'm glad we live in a generation where women can learn independence and learn. It makes widowhood way easier. Anyway, is what it is. And I just have tried to stay present, but not this past Thursday, but the Thursday before. Yeah, the 50s, exactly, Leslie. And she worked hard with my dad. She was always, she was part of the team, and she played the organ and taught Sunday school and she did what pastors' wives were supposed to do. But as far as living in the real world, just no concept of how to even do it. I mean, she didn't even have a Social Security card till just a few years ago, just because, you know, somehow she was never employed in the system. And thank God now she did get on there, because on every second Wednesday, because I have to pay for the stuff here. I'm like, come on, Social Security. Thank you, FDR. God bless those Democrats. Anyway, so Thursday a week ago, I was here. I usually am here during the day till around lunchtime, and I'll leave her lunch for her, and I'll say, Mom, I'm going to be gone for a few hours. I'll be back at dinner time. Don't go up and downstairs. And she basically just sits in her recliner and watches Fox News and dozes off. I mean, that was her MO. But on that morning, I heard a scream and ran downstairs, and she had fallen. Which there's so much to this story. I got to stay. I don't want to get in the weeds. The irony of her falling at the refrigerator. Those of you that know that story knows it's a trip. It's a new refrigerator, and I think when she was opening the door, it takes some pull to open it, and she got overbalanced, and she fell and fractured her pelvis. So she had to go to the bathroom. I mean, I ran down immediately. She said, a few days later, she said, I laid on that floor for hours with nobody to help me. I said, Mom, that's not true. The longest you could have laid there is maybe the 45 seconds that it took for me to frantically run downstairs and pick you up. But in her mind, it was hours. So I finally just quit arguing with her after the nurse came in and said, is there a problem here? I'm like, nope, I should know better than to argue. So anyway, I picked her up. She said, I've got to go to the bathroom. I'm trying to take her to the bathroom. She's screaming with every step. And I said, this is not working. I pulled up a chair. I said, sit down. I called 911. They came and took her to the emergency room. So she was in the hospital for a week. With a broken hip or pelvis, you can't sit, you can't stand, you can't sit on the toilet, you can't sit on the bedpan. I mean, it's a predicament. And so then, and this is what I did the video on earlier, that, the hospital, which was great, I have no complaints with Emory Decatur Hospital. They were great for the week that we were there. But then we were at a point where they said, all right, you're gonna have to be discharged. And I said, what am I supposed to do? And they said, well, do you have a plan? I said, I do not. And I've been taking care of her, but I can't do this. I said, is she eligible for hospice? And they said, we could send somebody over for, hey, Brenda, we could send somebody over for a couple of hours a day. I said, oh, no, that's not, I've got to have 24-hour now. That's not going to work. And so we talked about rehab. That was a possibility. We went round and round and round, and there was a few dark hours there where I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? I don't know where to take her when I get out of here. And one of the nurses took me aside and she said, look, they're not going to kick you out of here. They say they will, but they can't legally do that. And I said, well, if they're trying to scare the bejesus out of me, mission accomplished. So I did find this social worker who, hold that thought, Leslie, because you're not wrong. I don't want to get sidetracked on that because I got too much else to say, but you nailed it. The social worker said, she said, tell me what your criteria is. And I said, I'm going to have some help indefinitely. I can't. And so she brought me back a list of five possibilities. And one of them, I said, what's that one down there? And she told me, and it was a place, it's 14 minutes from here. It's 10 it's an Alzheimer's memory center. I mean, it's like an upscale nursing home, really. But she said they were the first ones that answered. And I said, I'm familiar with that because my mom and I actually went and toured that facility about putting my dad there. And, then he ended up dying and it wasn't necessary. And I said, if that's available, that would be wonderful because it's in my neighborhood. I know where it is. I've been in there. It's nice. I like the staff. And I'm like, how much is it? And she said, oh, Medicare will pay for this. I said, for how long? She said, well, with her insurance, indefinitely. And I'm like, yes, please. And it was a miracle, just a miracle. Right now, Mom doesn't see it that way yet. She's not totally happy that she's there. And it was funny because yesterday, my doorbell never rings, and yesterday it rang, and I went, and it was the next door neighbor, and she said, hey, I've been calling your mom, and nobody answers, and I just wanted to check on her, see what's going on. I said, I appreciate it, and I told her the whole thing, and she said, oh my God, I'm an only child too. She said, I don't know how you've done what you've done, and she's younger than me. She says, I'm not there yet, but I think about it a lot. And she said, can we go by and visit your mom? I said, oh yeah, it's fine. You can visit. And she said, we went and visited her a couple of times when she's assisted living. She said she didn't like it there. And I said, you know what? I'm of the persuasion she's not going to like it wherever she is. I mean, I just think that's the way she's wired. And I think it's so much in her nature, she doesn't even realize it. She wouldn't think that she's that way. But let me tell you, where I had her in assisted living it was nice enough. It was like a little condo. I would have lived in it. So I said, well, if you go visit her, just be prepared because she's ticked off at me because as of 3 days ago, she said to me and one of the therapists there, she said, how long have y'all been plotting this? I said, Mom, there was no plot. This is a miracle. I said, what do you think? I broke your pelvis? And I could tell it wasn't going well. So I said, you know what? Let's leave. I'm going to leave right now and I'll be back when, and I said, I know this is a new adjustment for you, but you have no idea what a blessing it is that this worked out. And they're taking care of you in ways that I can't. And she said, I just don't think I've been that difficult. I said, you haven't been. I'm saying where you are now, I am not equipped. Like there was one day in the hospital, she had, yeah, exactly, Leslie. Right before we left, I went down to get that Diet Coke you're talking about. I came up and she's somehow finagled to get over, hanging out halfway out the bed. And I had to go grab a nurse. I said, I don't know the proper way to pull her up without making her injury worse. I mean, it was confirmations like that. It was like, no, it is time. So that gives you the context. Let me give you the teaching part. Okay. I'm actually in a series. I say the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me to preach liberty to the captives. I have the tongue of the learned, let there be light. Okay. I don't know what that is, Linda. I'll check it out. All right. So I'm in what is this? Part 4? Yeah, part 4. I'm doing a series right now on Chronos time versus Kairos time. Chronos, Chronos, is time, like days and weeks and months and your watch and your calendar. Kairos time is like a God moment. It's time out of time. If you're interested in that concept, go back and look at the 3 previous installments. I love talking about this stuff. And I'm living it right now, actually. And so last week I used a verse, I think it's out of Psalm 31, where David said, my times, plural, are in your hands. And I was using it, talking about like the seasons of your life and navigating them and knowing where you are and everything. And has brought me to this passage that I want to share with you out of John 21. Now, before I read this, let me just say that I love Jesus. I am not a fundamentalist Christian. There's things about fundamentalism in Christianity that I think is not right. It's not even what those Bible writers meant. And if they were sitting here with me, they would back me up on that. I say that with no axe to grind. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just saying when Paul said the word needs to be rightly divided, he said a mouthful. And the problem with fundamentalism, it doesn't divide it. It just swallows it all, hook, line, and sinker. And that's where insanity comes from. And it's why we have 46,000 Christian denominations. People can't agree over 27 books of the New Testament because they don't know how to divide the human from the divine. Is the Bible the Word of God? No, it does not claim to be the Word of God. It can connect you to the Word of God. David said the heavens declare the glory of God. He heard from God from nature. The Bible writers would be horrified to think that things that they wrote, like administrative letters that they wrote, that people would consider that the Word of God. It nearly borders on being blasphemous. The Word of God is what causes us to live on a continuum. Man does not live by bread alone. Man does not live by leather-bound pages either, but by every word that proceeds present tense out of the mouth of God. God is in the now. God is the I am. One of the biggest problems with Christian fundamentalism is the idea that Adam and Eve were literal and they fell and they paid a price. And that's why Jesus had to come and die. I don't have time to go into all that, but let me just say this. If you didn't know, if you just heard that story and never heard it before, and you said, well, what did they do? What did they do that was so bad? Well, good point, Ed. What did they do that was so bad? As you said, well, they ate from a tree. No, seriously, what did they do? No, that was it. That was it. That was it. That was the fall. Is you ate and I don't even think it was a different tree. I think the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil are in the center of the garden, and they're two paradigms of the same tree. So when this happens, the Creator doesn't say they're naked. He asked them, he said, who told you were naked? In other words, this is your perception, not mine. I will never minimalize the cross. I love the cross, but the cross was not about appeasing an angry sky god. It was changing our idea of ourselves. Jesus said, if there's any way, let this cup pass from me. It was dying on the cross was not plan A. It was in response to man believing he was fallen, which is why Jesus was naked when he was crucified, because man thought he was naked, and it didn't have anything to do with modesty or nudity as we think of it. It was nakedness meant the perception that the glory of God had departed from you. And the truth is the glory never departed. So when Jesus was wounded for our transgressions, he was actually wounded for our perceptions of our transgressions. That's the power of the blood. The blood, yes, the blood covers, but it covers not because God requires sacrifice. The Bible says, I don't desire sacrifice. But for those cultures that came out of a history of blood sacrifice, Jesus came into that reality and dismantled it for us and said, you've always been right. You just didn't know you were right. So then, God pronounces these curses on him. All right, what's the curse? Well, he says to the man, you're going to have to work the ground by the sweat of your brow. And no, that's it. That's the curse. You're going to have to work. How many of you have jobs? If you do yard work, it's going to make you sweat. How many of you sweat when you mow the lawn? That's the curse. That was it. Go back and read Genesis. He says, because of this, you'll have to work by the sweat of your brow. Well, that's life. Where's the big curse in that? And then the curse for the woman is you're going to have labor pains. Okay. I mean, they hurt. I'm not diminishing them, but many of you women listening to me now have given birth to children, and somehow you survive labor pains. And, you know, when something that large comes out of something that small, it's going to hurt. That was it. That was the curse. Men got to get a job. Women going to have labor pains. Seriously, where's the curse in that? That's just life. Now, I said all that to say this. In John chapter 21, and this is the part where it factors in about my mom and about even, for those of you that follow me on here, that this morning in my memories, I don't know how this happened, but there's a memory from June of 2015 that it was a video that Ken took that was in my Facebook memory today. And I don't know how, the only way I can imagine that it was in there is I must have shared it at some point on this date, because usually your Facebook memories only appear on that date. And it was a video of my dad and my mom and my Aunt Clarice and my Uncle Don and Bishop Carlton Pearson. And we were all together and we were singing a song in honor of my uncle, Bishop Harry Meshegan, If I Can Help Somebody. It was one of Martin Luther King's favorite songs. And it was Uncle Harry's theme song. And the confirmation to what I'm talking about today, and for that to show up in my feed, it was really, I try not to overuse the word miracle, but I'm just going to have to say it was miraculous that appeared today. At least synchronistic. So anyway, 21st chapter of John is when, this is after the resurrection and Jesus appears on the beach. And this is when he says to Peter, those three things, do you love me? If you do, feed my sheep. Okay. So, I'm in the NIV. So, this is chapter 21, verse 17. The third time he said to him, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, do you love me? He said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my sheep. And in verse 18, he says, very truly I tell you, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go. Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. Then he said to him, follow me. Peter turned and saw that the disciple whom Jesus loved was following them. John always refers to himself as the disciple Jesus loved. No wonder the other guys resented him. Peter turned and saw that the disciple whom Jesus loved follows them. And this is the one that leaned back against Jesus at the supper. Yes, John, we know. And we know he was your favorite, or you were his favorite. At the supper and said, Lord, who is going to betray you? When Peter saw him, he asked, Lord, what about him? And Jesus answered, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? You must follow me. Now, here's the point. I actually had to go back and read that today because I hadn't read it in a long time. And in my mind, I was remembering that curse a lot more severe than it was. Somehow in my mind, I was thinking that he was telling Peter, you're going to go blind. And what he says is, yeah, when you're old, you're not going to be able to pick out what you want to wear, and people are going to lead you places you don't want to go. I'm like, well, that's basically elder care. I mean, does that really qualify as a curse. That's just what happens generally if you're not autonomous. I mean, I know some people that are in their 90s that seem to, I mean, I just watched a series with Carol Burnett. She's 92 and she's still memorizing lines and she's still funny. So, some people remain autonomous, but for the most part, most people, when they're in their 80s, 90s, they're doing what Jesus said Peter was going to do. It sounds like to me, Jesus was just saying you're going to live a long time. And what's that got to do with my whole story? All right, let me tell you this. First of all, I think I shared this. I'm sure I must have shared this yeah, I did. About my cousin LaDonna coming in the middle of the night and cleaning up the dog poop, which doesn't sound like that big a deal if you're not in the middle of, but I'm telling you, at 4 o'clock in the morning when you've been in an ER all night, you come home to do that and somebody has come in and done that for you, it is not over the top to call her an angel. And I had a similar thing happen this week because putting mom in this place means I had to sign documentation. It was like I was buying a house, all the stuff I had to sign. It's a folder that thick. And, 2 years ago, we did the power of attorney thing and she did a advanced directive. So thank God we've taken care of all of that. But I have to, you have to take all that stuff there. I had to have a conference with her doctor and he wanted to know what my goals were for her. And then yesterday, was it yesterday? No, it was Friday. I had to go in. Oh, I know. No. Thursday night. Thursday, I'd gone over there and I had to meet with the director and sign. Oh, yeah, I signed all. That's right. That was the day. Signed all that stuff. And she was great, but it was a lot. When you sign so many things, you're finally just going, I mean, it's by the 100th document, I was just scribbling. And then I said, what am I supposed to bring her? And she says, she needs to have about 2 weeks worth of outfits. She says, do you want us to do her laundry or you want to do it? I'm like, you please. Thank you. And, so she said, just tomorrow, just bring her stuff because we try to keep them out of their room as much as possible, which is what I want to talk about having to do with Peter. So, her closet and her bedroom and everything, it's a disaster in there right now. I've had to take a bunch of her clothes from upstairs, put them there because we need the closet space. And it's like the cleaning lady's coming Tuesday. I told her, I said, Mom's not here anymore. If you still want to work, I still need you. And she said, yes, I do. So I said, don't even bother with her room. Don't even go in there. In fact, I told Ken, I said, I just want to put a lock on the door. And until Mom goes, I'm not ready to deal with all that yet. But suffice it to say, just going in and picking out 2 weeks worth of stuff for her to wear, I wouldn't even know where to begin. So this was Thursday evening. Yeah, Thursday afternoon, I left meeting with her. I hope y'all are still with me. I hope I'm not going too long. And so I go over to Walmart, which, is a madhouse because people are preparing for an ice storm. And I'm aimlessly wandering around. I've never bought women's clothes before. And so thank you, Tim. It's just you and me, okay? So I'm wondering, and I'm asking a sales lady, I'm like, can you help me? Like, is this sleepwear? I'm trying to find comfortable stuff for her and stuff that kind of looks like what I know she would like. And I mean, I was in there for, God, I don't even know how long, just walking around with one garment. Like, God, what? I don't know. I mean, there's like racks of bras and pants. Like, she should have had a daughter. I don't know how to do this. And the workers there weren't super. Okay, Rhonda. Okay, Michelle. Good. I was just at a loss. So finally, I put together what I thought would work, and I had bags of stuff. Thank you, Ross. So I drive back over there, and I go to the lady at the front desk, and I said, I brought stuff for my mom. And they said, okay, you have to take it to inventory and itemize it. And I know this is going to sound dramatic, but it was like she had said, okay, Beth, thanks. It's like she had said, okay, but first you got to run up Stone Mountain real quick. I mean, it wasn't like impossible to do, but I was so sleep deprived. And so, yeah, a lot of that, Rosalind, you're right. And so, I just sat down on the couch, and there's a guy, his name's Julius. He walked in there and he said, hey, he said, are you okay? I was just staring off into space. I said, yeah, I'm just a little overwhelmed. I had to get stuff from my mom. I didn't know where to begin. And now I've got to itemize it all and put it in inventory. And he said, give me that stuff. I said, I know how to do this. And I said, no, I'll take care of it. I'm not this much of a basket case. He said, you're exhausted. I got it. Go. And I just went over and hugged him. I said, thank you. I know it's a small thing, but just that one extra thing again was just like too much. I'm telling you. Like I said about my cousin, angels walk among us. And I know that's just his job. I mean, he's doing it, but he's like, give me that and get out of here. He said, go get some dinner. He said, your mom's fine. We've got this. And then, I met, I've seen her 2 or 3 times since she's been in there, and sometimes she's been asleep. And thank you, Brenda. But Friday, I had to go meet with, they have like a care team. It's 4 women. One of them's a dietitian, and they go through, what does she like? What does she eat? Does she have allergies? I mean, they're very thorough. And it was kind of like it was like a therapy session. I can't explain it, but like the 4 of them, it's like they were like 4 prophetesses. I know they wouldn't think of themselves this way. But when I sat there, we were in a conference room, and I said, what? They said, we want to ask you some questions, but first tell us who you are and tell us who your mom is. So you know me. I mean, I go right into my story, and I told them everything. I told them how I was raised and what it was like growing up. And I talked about being married to Terry and being married to Debbie, and talked about having children. I told them about Ken. I told them everything. And I kept stopping saying, am I talking too much? And they're taking copious notes. They're like, no, this is everything we wanted to ask you. This is great. And they, like, one of them even asked, they were asking everything. Like, where was she born? What's her favorite color? What do you think her greatest contribution was? I mean, it made me, look at life. You know, is it Psalm 90 where Moses says, teach us to number our days? And it was kind of like, it was like a trial run for her memorial service, you know? And the reason I say they were like prophetesses is, as we were finishing up, one of them said, do you want to go visit her today? And I said, can I be honest? She said, please. I said, I don't want to. I said, she's mad at me for putting her in here, and I just don't want to be berated right now. I don't want to hear it. She's upset that she doesn't have a phone, and it's not that they forbid phones there, but they discourage them. And honestly, it's the biggest relief in the world to me that Mom doesn't have one right now, because, thank you, Michelle, that's sweet. I'm to a point with her. I'm not sure what happens when she gets on the phone and she's giving her Social Security numbers to scammers, and, foreign men have said they were going to come marry her and stuff. And for her, she does not like it. But I told her, I said, Mom, if you have any emergency, you just say help, and somebody's right outside your door, and they've got my number. They've called me 5 times today already. So when I told this woman that, she said, you know what, then our policy is no phones. I said, thank you. If we can just keep it like that for right now. And I said, I feel bad, but I just don't want to. I'm so tired. I worked so hard. And she has no concept of that. She just thinks I'm being mean, putting her in this place. And in unison, they said, you don't have to go see her every day. Come whenever you want to. They said, most of the people here don't remember what day it was when you were here anyway. And I said, I know, but I feel like, they're like, they said, with everything you just told us, you've done more than 5 children have done for their parents. They were like, we don't know how you've done what you've done. Don't you? I mean, they just were like, do not feel guilty and come here whenever you want to. And then one of them, she just grabbed my hand and she said, you're dealing with a lot of guilt, and there's no reason for it. She said, you've done your mom, whether she gets this or not, you've done your mom a solid by putting, she said, we've got her. She said, everything is taken care of for her. And they said, get out of here. Just don't, I mean, there's no way to tell you how wonderful they've been. So here's the part about Peter. Okay. And I'll try to wrap this up soon. When my mom was in the hospital, and she's been seeing people here in the house for weeks. I've told you all this, but like 2.5 weeks ago, I thought Ken had gotten up to go to the bathroom, and I thought, God, he's in there a long time. And I looked out in the hallway, and I thought, that light's not coming from the bathroom. That's come from downstairs. And I came down, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning. Thank you, Pam. They're angels. I am surrounded by a host of angels, let me tell you. And it was 3 o'clock in the morning. She's trying to unlock the front door. She's got her purse, her phone. I said, Mom, where are you going? And she said, those people in that room told me it's time to go. So I've been very aware that she's seeing people. And I believe I don't think that's hallucinations. I think the other side comes to get you. While she was in the hospital, she told me that my grandmother had come to visit her. And I said, what'd she look like? Without missing a beat, she described everything she was wearing. I said, did she have her hair piled up on top of her head? Like, that's the way I remember her when I was a kid. She said, no. I said, she looked when she was a young woman? And she said, yeah. And I said, Mom, that's grandmother coming to visit you. She told me that Dottie Rambo had come in the room. I called Reba and told her, and Reba said, it's not a hallucination, it's my mother. I said, okay. She told me that your dad's outside. Oh my God, thank you, Rhonda. I don't know if that's true, but thank you. She says, Dad's outside in the cab waiting. So for those hours, I thought, she's about to go. And I told her, when Ken was sitting there with me, I said, Mom, is Dad still out there in the taxi? And she said, yes. I said, don't you want to go with him? And she said, I don't have anything to wear. I said, you're fine like you are. Just go. And she said, I want y'all to come with me. I said, no, it's not our time to go. And he didn't come for us. And then that night, because I didn't know if the kids were going to see her again, I said, Mom, let me make a video of you. And I didn't say goodbye, but I said, I'm going to go through each of their names. I said, tell Jared you love him. Tell Christine. And she went through everybody and, named all the grandkids, everything. And I'm telling you, when it was over, She dropped her head, her mouth fell open. It totally looked like she had died. I mean, I couldn't even see her breathing. And I just sat there, because I've had a few moments like that with her in the last few weeks. And I sat there and looked at her. I said, Mom. And then she starts breathing again. And I remember Don, her twin brother, who passed on New Year's Day. I never even told anybody this till this week. I told my cousin Haroline yesterday. I was going through something with Mom a couple of years ago, and Don texted, we were talking, and he said, you need to get this thing right with your mom. He said, but I'm going to tell you something. He said, I love your mother. We were in the womb together. I'm also going to tell you she's one of the most stubborn people I've ever met in my life, and you need to be prepared. And when it's time for her to go, she's not going to go easy. I pondered those words in my heart until the last few hours, and they have rung in my ears, especially now that Don's on the other side. Now, here's my point about Peter. He says, Jesus says, somebody's going to take you by the hand and lead you where you don't want to go. All right. And what I'm about to say, I do not want you to think badly of my mom. My mom is a wonderful, there's so many things about her that are so wonderful. I'm sitting around here looking at her artwork. That's where I got it from. And even her tenacity, which can drive me crazy. On another level, I really appreciate it. I know how to fight. That being said, where I had her in assisted living, this place had about 6 units on the side that had their own entrance. They cost more, but they had their own entrance, and then the other side of it opened up into the facility. Well, when I saw that, I thought, this is perfect. I can drive right up here. She can have guests. I mean, I swear, I posted pictures of it. It was like a little condo. I mean, when I was fixing it up, the guys who were moving the furniture, they were like, damn, I'd live here. I said, I know, isn't this nice? And great facility. But I assumed that Mom would assimilate. She did not. She would not go eat with Mom does not think she's better. She does not have a superiority complex. She's just not a team player. So for the year that she was there, I paid nearly an extra $1,000 a month just for her to have room service, because she didn't want to go out there and eat with the other people. And when I would ask why, she would say, they're just too old. I don't want to be with old people. I said, Mom, most of them are younger than you. That's not how she sees herself. So I got tired of fighting it, and they were always emailing me about it. I'm like, I can't do anything about it. Just charge me whatever and take the food to her room. She's not going to eat with them. No matter how many times you tell her, she's not going to do it. She's not going to go play cards. All the stuff that they like to do, she's not going to do it. She wasn't raised that way. She doesn't know them. And so for a year, she sat in her condo, technically, with her 2 poodles and watched Fox News and had food delivered to her. Fine. We got through it. That's what she wanted. Okay, fine. Well, in this place, 2 of the times I've gone to visit her, she's not in her room and the bed's made, because this is a different thing. This isn't she doesn't have a private suite. She's in a nice room, but there's the last time I visited, there wasn't somebody else there, but it's built for 2. Like there's a curtain, and it's a twofer, which she'll have to get her head around that. But what's funny is, when I talked to these women Friday, I said, yeah, most times I've visited her, she's not even in her room, and they said, we don't let them stay in their rooms all day long. There's all kind of activity centers, and it's not good for them just to lay there all day. So we make them get up and get dressed. And so the first time I went to see her, there's women there playing cards, and she's sitting there in a wheelchair, sound asleep. I didn't even wake her up, because I thought she's going to be so pissed if she wakes up because she will hate this so much. And then the next time I saw her, she's in a wheelchair at another table with women. And she said, "Can I talk to you privately?" And it was, I got a scolding. And I said, "Mama, I can't make you understand. You've broken your pelvis. I'm not going to explain it again." But I thought, when it says that Peter, he's going to have to go where he doesn't want to go, I thought, this is what I think. I think when ancestors and my dad and everybody were coming last week, I think that was her time to go. I think she was supposed to go. And I think she doubled down. And I don't think she's being cursed. I do think she's having to face something that's kind of her worst nightmare. And that's just being with a bunch of other people she doesn't have anything in common with and sitting at tables. And I thought, you had it real good when you had it all by yourself and I was paying for room service. And now when I told those women there, they just laughed. They're like, "Oh no, that's over. She'll be eating with everybody else, whether she likes it or not." And here's my point in that about, a couple of things. And this has to do with why that video touched me so much today. If the lyric is, "If I can help somebody, my living will not be in vain." You really have to take account of your life. You have to know, please hear what I'm about to say, because I know some of you watching me right now some of you are in chemotherapy. Some of you, I'm very aware. I'm talking to people who are in the fight right now. And I am in no way telling you to give that fight up. I love that Dylan Thomas poem that says, "Do not go gently into that good night." I believe that. I think you should fight to live, fight to survive, do everything you possibly can. I do think if you're going to say, because even my neighbor who came yesterday, she said, "Yeah, your mom always told me she had 10 more years. And I said, "Yeah, she's telling me that too." And I thought, if you're going to say you're going to have X amount of years, you need to be very specific about how you want those years to be. Because you need to say, I'm going to have 10 more years of being viable and in my right mind and mobile. Because just longevity may not be what you want. For the longest time, I was saying, I'm going to live out of Genesis 6, I'm going to live 120 years. And then one day I thought, I need to be a little more specific what I want my life to be like. Because just saying I'm going to keep breathing might be a real burden on my kids. They're like, "How many more years has he got?" Like, I don't know. He said he's going to live to be 120. He's got 30 more years. I don't think that's the best case scenario. I also believe what I have learned in this, and it's not that God, whatever God is to you, I don't think God's being mean. I don't think God's this big lifeguard up in the sky that's testing everybody. I don't think that. I do think, however, that life is going to make you face things that you don't want to face until you get happy about it. And then you're free to go whenever. It's like when I'm talking about life, while you're young enough and you have stuff to live for, then yes, you hope against hope and you stand in faith and you do all of that. I'm all for that. I'm also saying it's like if you think of life as a party, there's some parties you show up to and you're like, "This is great, I'm having a great time," and you're there for hours and you're like, I've never had a better time. There's other times when you have to say to yourself, I think it's time to go. And I think it's time to go. And I think that's the way you have to live your life. And so now, I don't know, Mom could go today, she might go in another 10 years. One way or the other, I'm going to be free and she's taken care of. I will see her when I think it's the right time to see. "Bishop, you're not going every day?" Nope, I am not. I've gone the extra mile with that, and she's being taken care of. I'm taking care of this house. And even when the cleaning lady yesterday, she said, I think I'd like to stay on. I said, I think Mom would like that because she thought a lot of her. So, that's great. And it's a big house. I mean, we can use the help. And I'm not going to feel guilty about being free. I kept trying to feel guilty about it even in the wee hours of the night. And I kept thinking about that woman saying, you're dealing with way too much guilt, and there's no reason for it. You've done more than most people ever would. I mean, it was just hearing a professional say that to me was liberating in ways I can't even begin to tell you. So when it comes to the Chronos and Kairos part, I said all that to say this. Focus on the Kairos time of your life. Don't be so obsessed with the Chronos time. When I looked at my dad and my Uncle Don and Carlton Pearson singing Uncle Harry's song, I thought, those 4 men have all gone. Uncle Harry's been gone 11 years, 12 years, something like that. And they were all singing. Scroll up and you'll see it. They were all singing, "My living shall not be in vain." And I thought, they were all very, very different men, but their living wasn't in vain. Don was my parents' neighbor since they moved here in 2013, and he helped them so much. Good God, they called on him so much. His living was not in vain. He was helpful. Uncle Harry's living was not in vain. Carlton Pearson's living was not in vain. No one has affected modern theology more than him. And so today, I mean, you're looking at, my goal has been to be the freest man who ever lived. I'm not there yet, but I'm very close. I am a free man. And I love my mother, and I will take care of her. If she lives another 10 years, I'll be 78 taking care of her. But they say Medicare will last that long. So by that time, Ken and I will have done everything you could possibly do to this house. And when it's going to be amazing. We love it here. And, it's ended up, the whole thing about when we first moved in and the thing that happened with the water damage turned out to be a blessing because it forced me into doing renovations I would have never done otherwise. The insurance paid for it to the point I actually made money off of it. I've got painters coming this week because Ken was going to get up in this stairwell and do it. I said, I don't want you getting up on that ladder. I'm calling Brian Mathis. He came before and he was excellent. And he answered my text immediately. He's coming in a few days. And, we've just thoroughly enjoyed fixing it up. It's shaved 30 to 45 minutes off of Ken's commute time. And, I can't believe I'm even going to say this because I love my loft so much. But, that scene in The Color Purple when Sophia gets out of prison after all those years and she goes home and she says, I don't know you people no more. That's kind of the way I feel when I go there because they're under new management. I don't know those concierges. And I don't think I live here anymore. And it's going to take, I've got a lot to do. It's not going to happen overnight, but every time I go, I get more stuff and bring it here. So we're chipping away at it little by little. And as it turns out, everything I have taught is true. Everything that I thought I was called to do, I'm doing. Abundant life is real. All these years later, the Spirit of the Lord God is still upon me. And I'm blessed. I'm anointed. I have everything I need. I have wonderful relationship with my children and with my grandchildren. And I don't regret any decisions I made in life. If I hadn't gotten married, I would have never had children. A lot of men like me don't have that now at this age, and I can't imagine my life without them. I mean, I can't think of anything I want. I love where I live. I love my husband. I love my ministry. I love my life. I can always drop a few pounds and need to again, but I'm in pretty good health. No, I'm in very good health. I stay on top of things, but I am going to live a good long time in my right mind. I'm going to keep my right mind, and I don't want my kids to deal with what I've had to deal with my parents, but I don't regret it either. I'm amazed I can say this. I do not regret one part of this past year. The time we've been here, we've totally renovated the upstairs, and so I don't have to deal with that now. That's all done. And I'm telling you, Ken told me last night, because he's on call this week, and he got called in. He had to drive all the way out to Greensboro to turn off an alarm that somebody else could have done, but that's the deal. And he said, so I texted him and I said, are you on your way back? If you are, I'll just wait till you get here before I go, because I was going to go down to the loft and get this rug that I'm sitting on right now. And he said, yeah, when I'm not here, all I can think of is I just want to get back home. And I said, that's the way I feel too. So we're just very, very blessed. And once we get it all finished, I ordered a bunch of stuff. I don't know what all I've ordered because it was 3:00 in the morning and I was ordering stuff online. It's supposed to be here Wednesday. But when it's all finished, I'll do a whole video tour. And I even told him, I said, you know what I'm thinking? I may do this. It'll take us this long to get everything done that I want to, but I think I might do like a big 70th birthday bash here and do an open house thing. And I mean, I'm about to turn 68 in a few weeks, but I want to do a patio out back and do a fire pit, and there's parts of the yard that need to be cleared out, and I want to sod that. There's just a lot of things I want to do, and we're going to be able to do them. We enjoy doing it together. We enjoy having this synergy. As it turns out, everything I ever preached was true, and I walk in more light of it than I did 54 years ago when I started. But it's truer now than it ever was. So keep my mom in your prayers. I mean, she's fine. She's not all that happy, but she's fine. And I'm not worried about her. And I'm sleeping good at night. And God is good. Life is good. I love you all. If you want to support Metron, go to bishinthenow.com. If you want to send something to me, I have all the cash apps. I bless your life. I bless your times. I bless your Chronos. I release Kairos for you. I say that you're blessed when you come in and when you go out. And I mean that for every season of your life, that you're able to know, as the psalmist knew, my times are in your hands. Have a beautiful day. Stay warm. I speak protection over your house in this inclement weather. No plague comes anywhere near your dwelling. And I got to go do some stuff now because we got more projects we're working on. Love you. Bye.